The Marvel heroes have always dealt with their fair share of personal problems, whether that be from drugs, alcoholism, suicide, or just simple abuse. But what if there was a problem that the Marvel heroes couldn't defeat? Something so big that they couldn't defeat it alone, and would need the help of 6 kids a la Captain Planet's last Power Rangers. And that very problem being recycling.
You serious?
That's right. In 2001, Marvel helped create a comic to talk about the joys of recycling. The comic is known as Trash Masters and is a promotional comic for the New York Sanitation Department. This is one of the few comics I remember getting. I even still have it with me, dents and all. The comic was apparently written by Vivian Transky and Doug Bernstein. In Vivian's case, he's either a film producer for science documentaries or is a worker at the American Museum of Natural History. And in Doug Bernstein's case, the most I could find is that he was a writer for one episode of Thundercats. The only reviews of this comic I could find was from spiderfan.org. So I decided to reread the comic and see if it was as good as I remember it being. So the comic begins and we get a caption talking about the origins of the Trash Masters, basically explaining how they turned their wasteful school into a more safer environment. So it's less Captain Planet meets Power Rangers and more Captain Planet meets Lazy Town. Anyway, we then meet our group who, for the sake of this video, I'm going to call obligatory leader, obligatory stoner, obligatory kid, obligatory cool guy, and obligatory girl, all looking at disbelief at the massive garbage in their school, with the kid coming to the conclusion that only a monster could make such a mess. Now, I want to be honest here for a minute. I don't exactly remember how I got the comic, but what I do remember is how the cover hooked me in. I actually did thought they were going to find an actual trash monster, which is what probably made the things that happened next a little bit less interesting. We cut to them at their headquarters with their obligatory adult friend. They come to the conclusion that whoever or whatever made that mess, they should do a stakeout to find out who or what it was. And so, with the added permission of the principal, they split up into 3 groups. Girl and leader on 1st floor, cool guy and stoner on the 2nd floor, and child and adult on 3rd floor.
What was that?
Jokes aside, this is probably the most interesting part of the comic. It's nice seeing how the characters act and interact with one another, and it's fun to see what antics they get into. Anyway, it's near morning and the team nearly calls it quits. That is until Pothead accidentally puts a milk carton in the trash, making the team realize that they also have been doing it as well.
Hang on, are you trying to teach us something?
With the kids coming to the realization that the monster was actually them all along.
Oh, he is! Why do you keep trying to teach us things that we don't want to learn?
And so our comic ends with the kids learning to, I guess, recycle better. Now, before we get to the second story, I want to give out a few little tidbits. You see, the comic was drawn by Alex Savage, who did all the pencil work, and Bob McLeod, who did all the ink work, with Alex's work being primarily with Spider-Man comics, and Bob McLeod's most notable work being with the New Mutants. For the most part, the art is fine, but it does have some off panels. Not artisonic levels off, but certainly noticeable. Another thing is that while the Marvel heroes aren't a main focus in this comic, they actually do sew up. They just sew up before the comic starts, in between with the activity sections, and at the end. The only real mention of a superhero during the comic is the Hulk, but that's only in very small mentions. Anyway, our second story begins with obligatory kids class coming back from a field trip. Along the way back, they come across an empty lot that one of obligatory's friends happens to be near. So obligatory kid's friend gets the idea to turn it into a park. But the idea quickly gets shot down by Mr. Big. Someone who, if I were to describe him, is a mix of, unsurprisingly, Mr. Big from Word Girl, just without the hypnosis, and Vivid Vivisector from Furry Force, without being, sexually attacked by furries. Speaking of Vivid Vivisector, he decides to turn the entire lot into a parking lot. The kids, obviously not wanting it, think up ways to stop it, which gives obligatory adult friend an idea for a field trip. Using his magical transport device, going from Lewis from Wayside to Miss Frizzle, he's able to sell how many items can be reused, which gives the kids the idea to reuse old items for the park. And so, with the help of the community, and using his childhood to manipulate him, a la Diary of a Wimpy Kid old school, Mr. Big agrees. And so our comic ends with obligatory kid's friend finally getting the park. And that was Trash Masters, an all-around okay comic. While the first story is disappointing and has a rather rushed ending, it does do a good job of showing off the characters and their dynamics. And the second story does better exemplify the lesson of how reducing, reusing, and recycling can better help the environment. Overall, if you do want to check out this comic, I would recommend it. Just know that it isn't on Captain Planet's level, but it is better than Rainbow Rangers, so take of that as you will.
So Captain Planet, what other issues are you going to talk to grade school kids about?
AIDS?